Hi and welcome back to the Journey to Nebula Sew Along. I'm Julie Herman of Jaybird Quilts and I'll be your guide on this journey. This week we are working on the Lucky Charm pillow. We'll be focusing on cutting half hexagons using the Hex N More Ruler. Let's get started. So let's get these samples out of your way and we'll get started on our cutting. We are going to be using the Hex N More Ruler. As I mentioned, the Hex N More Ruler was designed to cut 4 shapes in 4 sizes. A full hexagon, a triangle, a jewel shape, and a half hexagon. Today we're focused on the half hexagon because that's what we need for Lucky Charm. Now Lucky Charm was designed with charm packs in mind, 5-inch squares. That being said, you don't need to start with 5-inch squares, and if you don't have them, don't bother cutting your stash into 5-inch squares. I'm going to show you a couple options, but if you have them, I'll show you how we're going to cut those. The reason I wrote it for charm squares is it's the quickest and easiest way to get a large variety of fabrics. We want to have 30 different fabrics featured on our pillow, and charm square is a nice, inexpensive, easy way to get that good variety. So if you're starting with a charm square, you can have a 5-inch by 5-inch, and the first step is to cut it in half into 2 rectangles that are 2.5 inches by 5 inches each. So just line it up on my 2.5 line. And cut. And this is where, if you don't have charm squares already, go ahead from your stash or your scraps or whatever you're using, start with 2.5-inch strips. You can use the same fabric more than one time. I said we're gonna use 30 fabrics. You can duplicate if you want because you'll get more than 2 out of a strip. That's all up to you when you get to the layout, but I'm gonna show you now how we work on our cutting. So specifically when we have our rectangle, it's just exactly where we need to be. If you have less than 5 inches, you're not gonna have enough in your seam allowance. If you have more than 5, that's great. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take our ruler, and we have this solid line here. We're gonna line up that solid line on the bottom of our piece, and then our solid line above the 4.5-inch hexagon is gonna be on the top of our piece. And you'll notice that you do have a little bit of space. I'm gonna move it up in case the captions are gonna end up covering that for you. You're gonna have a little bit in your points that is missing. You'll see that in the pattern as well. And that's totally okay because it's in your seam allowance. You just wanna make sure that you're as centered as you can be, because if you're too far one way or the other, you're gonna get too close to your seam. But so get yourself about centered there with your one line on the bottom solid line and the line above 4.5 on the top. And we're gonna just quickly do 2 little cuts. Okay, now I have a solid, so it's gonna be kind of hard to tell that I'm looking at the wrong side now, but I'm gonna flip it to the wrong side. If you have a print, it'll be more obvious. But instead of moving our ruler, we're gonna keep our ruler the same. We're gonna flip our fabric to the wrong side. And then we're gonna reline it back up right where we just were. So, solid line down here. The line we cut is underneath the line here, and the line above the 4.5-inch hexagon. Get that perfectly lined up. Cut and cut. And we're going to continue to do this, getting 2 from each charm square 30 times so that we have 30 pairs of half hexagons. Now, like I said last time, I know not everybody is right-handed like me, so if you're left-handed, here's how your setup's going to be. Same starting place. You're going to have the ruler where you can't read Hex N More, it's upside down to you, pointing away from you, and you're going to line it up same way with the solid line, the line with the 4.5-inch hexagon, and you'll cut. I'm not gonna do it because I'm not left-handed. Same thing, flip it, wrong side, line it up, cut again. Hope that makes sense. If any of you lefties have any questions, please just let me know. Now, if you are working from a strip instead of a charm square, a few things are a little bit different, but not that much, but I'm gonna show you. So you've got your 2.5-inch strip, and the first thing we need to do is, normally you would square up the end. There's no point in squaring because we're not working with squares here, so don't even spend your time worrying about cutting that off. We're going to line up our ruler and we're gonna trim that off when we get our half hexagon shape. So our solid line above the 4.5-inch hexagon and our solid line down here in the middle. And we're gonna cut. Okay. And then just like we did before, we're gonna flip to the wrong side. So our strip's gonna go the other direction now. And we're gonna re-line up our ruler on that cut line and the solid line here, solid line here. Now, we wanna keep as much of this fabric usable as possible. We don't have a square edge already from the charm pack. So we wanna make sure we don't cut too far into this. So instead of doing this cut first, where I could accidentally cut too much into my fabric, I'm gonna do this cut first. Let me show you. Cut, I'm gonna pull this away, and now I'm gonna cut that little triangle off. That way I didn't accidentally cut too far into my fabric. But I do have my notches cut on the bottom of my half hexagon here, which if you remember from last week with the diamonds, does really help with alignment. Now, I'm gonna take this piece and I wanna keep cutting. So you could flip your ruler upside down. I've seen people do this in my class. There's nothing wrong with that. If it makes the most sense to you, that's fine. I find it best personally to flip the fabric strip and line it back up. And like I said, we wanna do the long cut, then the short cut. So we're gonna do the long cut, pull it away, then the short cut. Now we do have a point at this side, so we're gonna just flip that back over real quick, line it back up, trim that little triangle off, and up with some confetti like we did last week. And then we have our pair, and they're gonna be arranged in the pillow like this to create a full hexagon. So at this point, go ahead with your fabrics, cutting a pair of half hexagons from every one of your fabrics, up to 30 of your fabrics. I'm just gonna lay out a couple for you to kind of see where it's headed. And you'll see sometimes I have my points trimmed off, sometimes I don't, haven't gone back to trim all of them off yet. And that's not a problem. But go ahead and get all of your half hexagons cut, and I'll meet you back here next week to work on piecing the Lucky Charm pillow. After you get all your cutting done, take a nice picture of all your cut pieces and post that to Instagram. Use the hashtag Journey to Nebula to be entered in this week's giveaway. If you have any questions, leave a comment wherever you are watching this video. Remember, we also have our community Facebook group where people can help you out too. I'll be back next week to show you how we put our Lucky Charm pillow together. See you soon.